Have you ever wondered how some people just have a way with words? You know, they can effortlessly win people over, while the rest of us sometimes feel like we're talking to a brick wall. Well, here's the good news. It's not magic. It's a skill, and it's one that anybody can learn. So let's dive into this powerful tool that can honestly transform your life both at home and at work. Okay, first things first, we have to get this out of the way. We are talking about persuasion, not manipulation, and the difference is absolutely crucial. Persuasion, the way we're going to talk about it, is ethical. It's all about creating a win-win through honest and transparent communication. Manipulation, that's the dark side. It's deceptive, it's self-serving, and it's coercive. So for the rest of this explainer, we are squarely focused on the art of ethical influence. All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start with mindset, then build a foundation of credibility, peek into the psychology of yes, fine-tune our communication, and finally put it all together. Every piece builds on the last, so let's jump in. Let's kick things off with the single most important idea. You know, the biggest myth out there is that persuasion is some kind of natural talent. You're either born with it or you're not. That is just not true. It all starts with your mindset. And that brings us to the incredible work of Carol Dweck on the growth mindset. It's this simple, but totally game-changing belief that your abilities can be developed. If you believe you can get better at persuasion through hard work and practice, you will. It's that simple. This skill is available to anyone who's willing to put in the effort. So, how do you actually start building that foundation? Well, you've got to be a lifelong learner. Get curious about communication and psychology. Set some clear goals for yourself, and start seeing every single conversation, big or small, as a chance to practice. And most importantly, everything, and I mean everything, has to be anchored in honesty and finding that win-win outcome. That's your starting block right there. Okay, so we've got the right mindset. Let's move on to section 2, the credibility cornerstone. Because look, before you can persuade anyone of anything, they have to believe in you. It all comes down to a simple question. Why should people even listen to you in the first place? You know, this is not some new revolutionary idea. We're talking ancient wisdom here. Over 2,000 years ago, Aristotle called this ethos. It's basically your character, your expertise, your trustworthiness, all rolled into one. He knew that sometimes who you are speaks way louder than anything you could possibly say. Your reputation walks into the room long before you do.
So how do we build this ethos? It really boils down to 3 practical things. First, show what you know, demonstrate your expertise. Second, be reliable, do what you say you're going to do. And third, always act with integrity. It sounds simple, right? But mastering it is a lifelong pursuit.
All right, we've built our credible foundation. Now it's time to look outward. Welcome to section 3, the psychology of yes. This is the really fun part, where we get into the fascinating science behind why people agree to things. And to do that, you have to know about the incredible work of Dr. Robert Cialdini. He identified 6 universal principles that kind of govern how we're all influenced. Honestly, understanding these is like getting a user manual for the human brain. So these are Cialdini's big 6. We don't have time to go deep on all of them, so let's just focus on 3 of the most powerful ones, the ones you can start noticing and using ethically, like today. First up is reciprocity. This one is huge. We are basically hardwired to repay debts. You know that feeling when a friend buys you a coffee? You almost immediately feel like you need to get the next one. The key here is to be the first to give. Offer genuine help, share useful information with no strings attached.
Next up, scarcity. Just think limited time only or only 2 left. When something seems rare or like it's about to run out, its value just skyrockets in our minds. It's wild, but we are far more motivated by the thought of losing something than we are by the thought of gaining something of the exact same value.
And then there's social proof. This is all about our inner herd mentality. When we're not sure what to do, what's the first thing we do? We look around to see what everyone else is doing. It's exactly why customer reviews and testimonials are so incredibly powerful. We just automatically trust the wisdom of the crowd. Okay, you've got your credibility, you understand the psychology. Now it's all about the delivery. That brings us to section 4, communication that connects. Because so often, how you say it is just as, if not more, important than what you say. Now this might actually blow your mind. There's a famous study that found when we're talking about feelings and attitudes, our actual words only account for about 7% of the impact. A whopping 93% is nonverbal, your tone of voice and your body language. What that means is, for your message to really land, all three have to be singing the same song. So what can you do about this? Let's make it super practical. With your words, just be clear and be concise, no rambling. With your nonverbals, start paying attention to your posture, your hands, your facial expressions. And finally, and this one is probably the most important of all, just listen. Practice listening to actually understand where the other person is coming from, not just to plan what you're going to say next. That is the secret to a real connection. And here we are, our final section, putting it all together. We've covered mindset, credibility, psychology, and delivery. So what happens when you face the real world with all its inevitable pushback? How do we turn all this theory into actual mastery? First, you got to understand why people resist in the first place. There's something called reactance theory, which basically says that when people feel like you're trying to take away their freedom to choose, they will instinctively dig in their heels and push back. It's a defense mechanism. So your goal isn't to steamroll resistance, it's to understand it. And this 4-step framework is your key. Don't ever just jump into your arguments. Build some rapport first. When they raise an objection, truly listen. Don't just hear the words, try to understand the feeling behind them, and then validate that feeling. Only then can you try to reframe the conversation around shared goals. And finally, close the loop. Make sure you're both on the same page about what happens next. So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, becoming a master of persuasion, it's not a finish line you cross. It's a journey. It's a continuous process of practicing, reflecting, and growing. It's about trying to show up every single day and be just a little bit clearer, a little more credible, and a little more connected than you were yesterday. And that brings us to the end. We've gone all the way from mindset to mastery in the art of ethical persuasion. So I'm going to leave you with a question to think about. Which one of these principles are you going to start practicing first? Because the ability to persuade, it isn't just about getting what you want. It's about building bridges, creating connections, and finding a better way forward together. Go out and start building your first bridge today.